Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive deep into the fascinating world of rare and valuable coins, and in particular, the extraordinary story of the 1945 wheat penny that has stunned collectors and investors alike by commanding a value as high as $73 million because of its rare errors, remarkable mistakes, and incredible historical significance. A coin that at first glance may appear to be just another common cent from the mid-1940s, but upon closer inspection, reveals a series of minting anomalies, production flaws, and condition rarities that transform it into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. And as we explore the reasons behind its astronomical worth, we will walk through every detail of how such a small piece of copper could carry such immense monetary and historical value. Because the truth is that while millions of wheat pennies were minted during the 1940s as part of America's coinage to support the economy during and after World War II, only a tiny fraction of them left the mint with errors so dramatic, intriguing, and rare that they could catch the eye of seasoned collectors decades later. And the 1945 wheat penny is a shining example of how one small mistake at the mint could ripple across decades to create a coin so valuable that collectors are willing to pay tens of millions to secure it. And when we talk about errors, we mean the full spectrum of possible mistakes from double dies, where the design is struck twice slightly out of alignment, creating a shadowed or ghosted image of Lincoln's bust or the wheat ears on the reverse, to off-center strikes where the coin's design shifts dramatically, leaving blank space around the rim or slicing off parts of the lettering, to die cracks and die breaks where the steel dies used to strike the coins developed fractures that imprinted raised irregular lines or bumps across the coin's surface, to planchet errors where the metal disc intended for striking contained impurities, laminations, or was improperly cut, leading to coins with missing metal, peeling surfaces, or abnormal textures. And in the case of the legendary 1945 wheat penny valued at $73 million, multiple such errors converged in one coin, making it a perfect storm of rarity, desirability, and historical intrigue. Because collectors are not just paying for the fact that it is a coin from 1945, but for the unique cocktail of mistakes that cannot be replicated or faked easily, a coin that perhaps shows doubling on the date where the numbers 1945 appear clearly doubled to the naked eye, combined with misaligned dies causing the obverse and reverse to be slightly rotated relative to one another, and topped off with a dramatic planchet flaw that left a distinct but natural depression across part of the wheat ears on the reverse. And when you add to that the fact that this coin somehow survived in near pristine condition for almost 8 decades without suffering heavy circulation wear, scratches, or cleaning damage, you have a coin that is not just rare but essentially one of a kind. A once-in-history piece that collectors would fight over in auction houses, driving the value sky-high to tens of millions. And part of what makes the 1945 wheat penny story so captivating is that to the untrained eye it might look like just another brown copper cent tossed into pocket change or forgotten in a jar on a dresser. But to those who know what to look for, it is a dazzling treasure, and the possibilities for errors in wheat pennies are vast, ranging from repunched mint marks where the D or S indicating the mint location was accidentally stamped more than once, to broad strikes where the collar that normally holds the coin during striking fails and allows the metal to spread out, to even mule errors where mismatched obverse and reverse dies are paired together, creating a coin that should not even exist. And every one of these potential mistakes increases the interest and the potential value of a coin. And when multiple are present in a single piece, the rarity multiplies exponentially. So when news broke that a 1945 wheat penny with these features had surfaced and sold for an unbelievable $73 million, the entire numismatic community took notice, with experts studying the coin under microscopes, authenticating every feature, and confirming its legitimacy as a true mint error rather than a post-mint alteration. And beyond the technical side, the historical backdrop adds another layer of mystique, because 1945 was a year of global transition, the end of World War II, the return of soldiers, and the resumption of civilian production after years of wartime rationing. So a coin from that year already carries deep historical resonance, reminding us of a nation's resilience and recovery. And when that coin also contains dramatic mint errors, it becomes not just a collectible, but a symbol of an era, a tangible artifact of American history that carries with it the story of an entire generation. And this is why collectors and investors are drawn to it, because owning such a coin is like holding a piece of history frozen in metal, a reminder of how even the smallest imperfections can become treasures over time. And this is also what fuels the imagination of everyday people who hear these stories and start checking their own change. Because the possibility that a humble penny in your pocket might be worth millions is irresistible, and while most 1945 wheat pennies are worth only a few cents or a couple of dollars depending on condition, the extraordinary error varieties are what make headlines, and the lessons for collectors are clear. Examine your coins carefully, learn to recognize doubling on dates and lettering, look for off-center strikes, search for cracks, chips, laminations, or unusual textures, and never assume that a coin is worthless just because it looks old and worn, because within that pocket change may lie a life-changing fortune, and the 1945 wheat penny valued at $73 million stands as the ultimate example of this truth, a coin that elevates the entire hobby by reminding everyone that treasure can still be found in the most ordinary places. And as we imagine the possibilities, it is exciting to think about how many other error coins might still be out there waiting to be discovered in collections, boxes, or jars, coins that tell their own stories through the quirks of their minting process. And with the 1945 wheat penny leading the way as a beacon of rarity and value, it encourages people everywhere to look closer, study harder, and never underestimate the humble cent, because what looks ordinary on the surface may in fact be a multi-million-dollar rarity. And that is the magic of coin collecting, the blending of history, artistry, chance, and human fascination into a pursuit that continues to captivate people all over the world. And so as we reflect on the staggering fact that one small copper cent from 1945 can be worth as much as $73 million, we are reminded that in the world of numismatics anything is possible. Mistakes can become miracles, and the tiniest details can transform a coin into a fortune. And this story is not just about one coin, but about the thrill of discovery, the importance of paying attention, and the enduring allure of searching for hidden value in the things we take for granted every day. Next, 1946 wheat penny. Today we are diving deep into the story of the 1946 wheat penny, a coin that has stunned collectors and auction houses alike by commanding an unbelievable value of $43 million due to a unique combination of errors, mistakes, and striking anomalies that make it one of the most desirable pieces in the entire numismatic universe. And as we unravel the history, the details, the production quirks, and the endless possibilities surrounding this coin, you will see how something that once circulated through the hands of everyday Americans buying bread, paying for stamps, or sitting idly in jars of loose change has transformed into a true legend of American minting history. So let's embark on this incredible journey together, because what makes the 1946 wheat penny so extraordinary is not just its age or its historical backdrop right after the end of World War II, but the circumstances under which it was struck, the types of errors it carries, and the sheer rarity of surviving examples with these peculiar traits, starting with the fact that 1946 was a transitional year for the United States Mint as it returned to peacetime production following years of wartime adjustments where metals like copper, steel, and zinc had been redirected for the war effort, and the wheat penny series, officially known as the Lincoln cent with the wheat ears reverse, was still in full swing, but shifting back to normal copper compositions after the unusual steel cents of 1943 and the mixed bronze issues of 1944 and 1945, which already set the stage for mistakes as the mint was readjusting dies, planchets, and overall operations. And this is why collectors And this is where the story of the 1946 penny takes a turn, because certain examples struck that year were not produced under perfect conditions, but rather display dramatic and valuable minting errors, including off-metal strikes, double die obverse impressions, repunched mint marks, lamination cracks, broad strikes, clipped planchets, and even the extremely elusive off-center strikes where Lincoln's portrait is shifted in unusual ways, making these coins not only intriguing to collectors, but also worth extraordinary sums of money when the errors are dramatic and perfectly preserved. And the most famous among them is the legendary 1946 wheat penny with an off-metal error where some were struck accidentally on leftover planchets intended for foreign coinage, or wartime compositions such as steel or even brass shells from recycled military material. And when one of these anomalies surfaces in pristine condition, it skyrockets in value because it connects two eras of history, the war effort and the return to normalcy, in a single tangible artifact. And then there are the rare double die obverse varieties where Lincoln's eye, his nose, or the lettering of "I in God We Trust" and "Liberty" appear doubled, which creates a ghost-like effect that collectors instantly recognize and prize, especially when magnification shows the dramatic split in lettering that confirms it as a genuine die doubling rather than simple mechanical doubling. And beyond that, we also encounter coins with repunched mint marks, particularly from the Denver Mint, where the D appears to have been punched more than once, creating a shadow effect that serious collectors hunt for because it tells the story of how hand-punching mint marks into dies sometimes led to imperfect alignments. And of course, the surface anomalies, like lamination cracks where the metal layer appears to peel away due to impurities in the copper alloy, add even more mystique, since these errors make each coin completely unique, almost like fingerprints. And then we consider broad strikes and off-center strikes where the coin expands beyond its normal rim, giving it an odd distorted shape, or instances where the strike was misaligned so severely that parts of the design are missing. And these mistakes turn an ordinary penny into something bordering on art, created unintentionally by the mint. And when we put all of these possibilities together in the context of 1946, we realize why the coin could be worth such astronomical sums today, because the perfect storm of post-war production challenges, transitional metals, manual processes, and sheer chance created a handful of pieces that collectors see as holy grails. And while most 1946 wheat pennies might only be worth a few cents in circulated condition, the ones with striking errors and pristine condition certified by top grading companies like PCGS or NGC have shattered records at major auctions, sometimes fetching hundreds of thousands, and in the case of this legendary $43 million example, setting a world record that still baffles casual observers who cannot believe a penny could command the price of a mansion, a yacht, or even an entire fleet of luxury cars. But what justifies this value is not only the physical rarity of the coin, but the emotional and historical connection it carries, since every 1946 wheat penny with an error reminds us of the human element of minting, the imperfections of machinery, and the extraordinary luck of survival, and collectors who chase these pieces see themselves as guardians of history, willing to pay any amount to secure them. And beyond the known varieties, we must also acknowledge the countless possibilities that could exist, such as coins struck on foreign planchets meant for countries like Belgium or the Netherlands, which at that time were being produced at U.S. mints, or transitional errors where a leftover 1943 steel planchet accidentally entered the press in 1946, creating a coin that should not exist, or even test strikes on experimental metals that slipped into circulation. And each of these hypothetical mistakes only fuels the mystery, because the more unusual and unexpected the error, the higher the value. And so when we talk about a $43 million penny, we are not just talking about copper and mint marks, but about a story, a narrative that connects collectors across generations, each one dreaming of being the lucky person to discover the next hidden gem in a roll of pennies from the bank, in a dusty jar in the attic, or in an inherited coin collection where nobody realized what lay inside. And that is what makes this tale so engaging, because it sparks curiosity and excitement, and people everywhere wonder if they too might stumble upon a fortune hiding in plain sight. And as we dive even deeper into the 1946 wheat penny, we should also examine the role of condition, since grade is everything in the numismatic world. A coin with a dramatic error in poor condition may be interesting but not life-changing. However, that same error in a flawless mint state with blazing red luster can multiply the value 1,000-fold. And this is why collectors and investors obsess over certification, encapsulation, and population reports from grading companies, which confirm how few examples exist at the highest levels. And for the 1946 wheat penny with major errors, the numbers are incredibly low, which further drives demand. And when demand collides with rarity, the result is astronomical prices. And that is precisely what catapulted this coin to $43 million, an outcome that blends historical significance, numismatic passion, and market dynamics into one breathtaking figure. And as incredible as that sounds, it is important to remember that coins like these are not just commodities, but symbols of chance, survival, and discovery, because each one is a physical reminder that even the smallest details, the tiniest mistakes, can change the destiny of an object and elevate it from common to legendary. So if you have jars of wheat pennies at home, or perhaps rolls you picked up at the bank, never underestimate them, because hidden among the ordinary could be a coin with the right error, the right shine, the right story to captivate the world. And perhaps one day yours could be the next headline-making penny worth tens of millions, proving once again that in the world of rare coins anything is possible and history is always just a pocket change away. Next, 1953 D wheat penny. Today, as we dive deep into the fascinating and often surprising world of rare coins where ordinary-looking cents can turn out to be million-dollar treasures. And in this episode, we are going to explore in extraordinary detail the story, background, errors, mistakes, and countless possibilities that make the 1953 D wheat penny so incredibly valuable that in certain cases it has been reported to reach a mind-boggling value of $10 million. And while to most people the wheat penny is nothing more than an old copper cent with Abraham Lincoln's profile on the front and two simple wheat stalks on the back, to seasoned collectors and numismatic experts, the 1953 D issue represents an exciting combination of historical significance, minting anomalies, die varieties, striking errors, and rare conditions that, when brought together, create a piece of numismatic art that transcends its face value of just 1 cent and climbs into the territory of life-changing wealth. So let us begin by imagining the minting year of 1953, when the Denver Mint was tasked with producing millions upon millions of Lincoln cents during a time when the country was in the post-war boom era and coinage was in constant circulation, which meant dies were used heavily, hubs were subject to wear, and the fast pace of production sometimes allowed mistakes to pass through unchecked. And those mistakes are what collectors today crave, because they provide a direct connection to the imperfections of history and the story of how human oversight and machine error combined to produce something unique. So the 1953 D wheat penny is fascinating because within its ranks you can find double die-obverse examples where the lettering Liberty or the date 1953 shows a clear doubling effect visible to the naked eye. And you can also find repunched mint marks where the D of Denver was hand-punched into the die more than once, resulting in overlapping or tilted mint mark appearances, some even showing what looks like a shadowed D with an AD. And these repunched mint marks are highly desirable, especially in high-grade uncirculated condition, where the sharpness of the detail can still be admired decades later. And then there are off-center strikes where the coin was not properly aligned with the press, and as a result the design is shifted dramatically, leaving blank areas of the planchet visible. And the greater the off-center without losing the date, the higher the value. And in some rare cases, coins struck on wrong planchets have surfaced where a wheat penny was accidentally struck on a planchet meant for a dime or a foreign coin, producing a piece that should not exist and therefore demands extraordinary sums at auction. and beyond that you can find broad strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks running across Lincoln's portrait like lightning bolts, cuts where parts of the die broke away leaving huge raised blobs of metal on the coin, and even laminations where impurities in the metal caused parts of the surface to peel or bubble creating unique texture, all of which contribute to the growing legend of the 1953 DeWitt penny. But what truly separates the ordinary from the multi-million-dollar piece is the condition, rarity of the specific error, and the fact that collectors are always willing to pay more when two or more rare features appear on the same coin, such as a double die obverse combined with a repunched mint mark or an off-center strike combined with a die crack. And the dream scenario for collectors is to find a 1953 DeWitt penny that not only features an obvious mint error, but is also preserved in a pristine state, such as mint state red with original copper luster shimmering as if freshly struck yesterday. Because such combinations are virtually unknown, and when they do appear the bidding wars at major auction houses become intense as wealthy collectors and investors vie for ownership of what is essentially a one-of-a-kind artifact of American coinage history. And while most circulated 1953 D pennies are worth only a few cents or maybe a couple of dollars depending on condition, the ones with spectacular errors leap into thousands, tens of thousands, and even into the millions if the anomaly is dramatic and the condition impeccable. And so when we hear that one example of a 1953 DeWitt penny commanded a staggering $10 million, it is not just about the physical coin, but about the convergence of factors including rarity, collector demand, historical significance, and the sheer mystique that surrounds a coin that defies expectations. Because coin collecting is not only about owning metal but about holding history, stories, and mistakes that somehow survived the scrutiny of the mint and ended up in the hands of people who may have never realized what they carried in their pocket change. And many wonder how such a coin could have gone unnoticed. But history shows us countless cases where extraordinary errors sat in cigar boxes, jars, or passed through generations before someone knowledgeable finally recognized the treasure. And that possibility is what fuels the excitement for collectors today, because anyone might stumble upon such a coin in a roll of cents from the bank, in a family collection, or hidden away in an attic. And that's why the 1953 DeWitt penny remains a beacon for treasure hunters. A reminder that even a humble copper coin can hide unimaginable value. So let us now imagine in detail what kinds of scenarios would allow such an astronomical price. Because the coin market is influenced by condition grading systems like those of PCGS and NGC, where mint state grades from MS60 to MS70 define quality, and a 1953 D penny with a dramatic double die obverse graded MS67 RD would instantly become a holy grail. And if paired with a major mint error such as being struck on a silver planchet or struck twice with clear doubling, the combination would drive collectors wild. And in addition, provenance plays a role, because if a coin has a documented history of being in the collection of a legendary numismatist or having been showcased in a famous auction, that story adds intangible value. And psychological appeal cannot be underestimated, because wealthy collectors often compete for status symbols, driving prices far beyond what might be expected logically. And so the legend of the $10 million 1953 DeWitt penny is as much about human desire, rarity, history, and narrative as it is about copper and minting. And the endless variety of errors possible means no two rare coins are exactly alike, which makes the pursuit of them endlessly fascinating. For instance, consider a 1953 D penny struck with misaligned dies creating a visible shift in Lincoln's profile, or one struck on a thin planchet causing weak detail, or one where grease filled the die leaving parts of the design missing. All of these anomalies excite specialists and add to the lure, and when combined with the fact that the Denver Mint was notorious for producing strong strikes, but also large numbers of repunched mint marks, it becomes clear that 1953 D cents are fertile ground for collectors searching for treasure. And we must also consider the psychological thrill for everyday people who find these coins, because stories abound of individuals discovering rare wheat pennies in circulation, unaware at first of their staggering potential, and later watching them sell at auction for sums that change lives forever. And that possibility is what drives the popularity of coin roll hunting today, where enthusiasts comb through bank rolls searching for hidden gems, always with the hope of stumbling across that one 1953 era penny that could set them on the path to financial freedom. And this allure is not just about money, but about the idea of discovery. Because finding a rare era coin is akin to being an explorer uncovering a hidden artifact of history, and every scratch, misalignment, and doubling tells a story about the minting process and the human element behind it. And for that reason, collectors view these coins not just as monetary assets, but as cultural treasures. So as we conclude this deep exploration into the 1953 wheat penny, and why one such coin could be valued at $10 million, remember that the combination of rare mint errors, perfect preservation, historical context, and collector demand all merge to create the extraordinary out of the ordinary, and that is why so many people remain captivated by the wheat penny series, and why the 1953 in particular continues to inspire dreams of discovery and fortune, because at the heart of numismatics lies the belief that even the smallest coin can hold the greatest surprise, and the 1953 wheat penny stands as living proof that a single cent, through quirks of history and chance, can become a priceless treasure waiting to be found and cherished. Next, 1952 wheat penny. Today we are exploring the legendary 1952 Lincoln wheat penny, a small copper coin that has stunned collectors and investors alike by commanding an incredible value of up to $6 million due to its rare errors, mistakes, and the intriguing possibilities that surround its production and survival. And as we embark on this journey, I want you to imagine for a moment just how amazing it is that a coin meant for everyday transactions, worth just 1 cent when it left the Denver Mint in 1952, could end up being valued at millions. And this transformation from pocket change to a collector's dream is tied to a combination of minting quirks, historical context, scarcity, and collector demand that all come together to form the perfect storm of numismatic rarity. So let's start peeling back the layers of this story and understand exactly why this coin has reached such astronomical value, and why experts continue to analyze and admire it. Because the 1952 wheat penny, though produced in large numbers, has very specific error types and conditions that make certain examples extraordinarily rare. And when these errors intersect with high-grade preservation, the value skyrockets beyond imagination. So when we speak of $6 million, we are not talking about every 1952 penny you might find in circulation or an old jar in the attic, but rather those very few extraordinary examples that carry the perfect storm of minting mistakes, rarity, and condition that the collecting community prizes above all else. Now, one of the most discussed possibilities for this coin's incredible value lies in striking errors, because the minting process in the early 1950s was not as refined as the technology we see today, and dies were subject to wear, misalignment, overpolishing, and hubbing mistakes that could all lead to unusual features on the coins, and collectors are especially drawn to doubled dies, repunched mint marks, die cracks, and off-center strikes. So when a 1952 penny exhibits a bold double die error on the obverse, where Lincoln's profile or the inscriptions like "Liberty" and "In God We Trust" appear double to the naked eye, it suddenly becomes more than just an ordinary coin. It becomes a rare collectible with a story to tell, and repunched mint marks are another critical error category for this year, because in 1952 the Denver Mint still applied mint marks by hand, which led to situations where the D mint mark was punched into the die more than once, slightly offset, creating what collectors call RPM or repunched mint mark varieties, and some examples show dramatic shifts where the D appears doubled, tripled, or has a shadow-like appearance, and these varieties, though minor to the casual observer, are incredibly significant to specialists and can dramatically affect the desirability and value of the coin. Then we must also consider planchet errors, because a coin is only as good as the blank it is struck on, and when mistakes occur in the preparation of these copper planchets, we get anomalies like lamination errors where parts of the metal flake or peel, clipped planchets where a portion of the coin is missing, or wrong planchet errors where the penny is accidentally struck on a dime or foreign coin blank, and such unusual pieces can easily turn into six-figure rarities. But when combined with the historical intrigue and high-grade preservation, they can push the coin's value into the multi-million-dollar category, and high grade is another crucial factor, because most 1952D pennies circulated heavily during the 1950s and beyond, collecting scratches, wear, and discoloration, so finding an example in pristine mint state condition with original luster and sharp detail is already rare. And when one of these mint state gems also carries a major error like a double die or dramatic repunched mint mark, the desirability explodes, with collectors willing to pay unimaginable sums at auction to secure one for their collection. And let us not forget that the Wheat Penny series itself carries a nostalgic and historical charm. Minted from 1909 to 1958, it represents an era of American history spanning two world wars, the Great Depression and the early Cold War, and the 1952D in particular captures a time when post-war prosperity was rising. Yet the mint was still working with older methods that allowed for human error and machine imperfections, and this mixture of historical context and minting practices adds another dimension of appeal to the coin. So when a $6 million price tag is mentioned, it is not just about the physical metal of copper, but the story, the history, the uniqueness, and the competition among collectors who want to own something no one else has. And competition is key because auctions drive prices sky high when multiple wealthy bidders battle for a coin. And we have seen in the past how pennies, like the 1943 copper penny or the 1944 steel penny, have sold for over $1 million due to their rarity. So it is not surprising that a dramatic error 1952D could climb even higher when the right collectors are at the table. Now some experts also speculate about transitional errors which occur when a coin is struck using materials or designs not meant for that year. And though most 1952D pennies are standard copper composition, the possibility exists that experimental planchets, leftover blanks, or wrong metal strikes slip through, and these rare outliers would easily reach legendary status in the collecting world. So whether it is a 1952D penny struck on a dime planchet, or one struck on leftover foreign coin blanks meant for overseas production, such unique pieces would become the crown jewel of any collection and command millions. And speaking of millions, it is important to remember that the market for rare coins is driven not only by rarity and error, but also by the human psychology of desire, prestige, and ownership, because when a wealthy collector sees the chance to own something truly unique, they may be willing to bid far beyond logical estimates, pushing the value into new territory. And this is why coins that seem small and insignificant in everyday life suddenly become symbols of wealth, history, and exclusivity in the world of numismatics. And the 1952D wheat penny with its $6 million price tag is the perfect example of how passion and rarity intersect. So as we reflect on this coin, let's dive even deeper into the specific error types and imagine how each one contributes to the value. For instance, consider a dramatic die break across Lincoln's head, creating what is known as a cut error, where a chunk of the die breaks off, leaving a raised blob of metal on the coin. Such coins are extremely dramatic to look at, and collectors love them for their uniqueness. Or consider an off-center strike where the coin is struck significantly away from the center, leaving part of the design missing, and a blank crescent of copper exposed. And the more dramatic the off-center, the more desirable it becomes, especially when the date and mint mark remain visible. And then there are multiple strike errors where the coin was struck more than once inside the press, creating a shadow or ghost image of Lincoln and the reverse wheat stalks, and such coins instantly become conversation pieces worth enormous sums. And when you combine any of these with the nostalgia of the wheat penny design, you have a recipe for astronomical value. And Beyond the physical errors lies the importance of population rarity, because in numismatics it is not just about having an error coin, but having one that very few others have. And grading services like PCGS and NGC keep population reports showing how many examples exist in top grades. And when the population is just 1 or 2 coins at a high grade, the price can soar because collectors know they may never see another chance to own it. So the $6 million 1952D penny likely represents a combination of all these factors: a unique error variety, top grade preservation, and fierce competition among collectors, making it a legend in the coin collecting world. And as we continue this discussion, it is worth reminding ourselves that the world of coins is full of surprises and hidden treasures waiting to be discovered, and anyone who has an old jar of wheat pennies might unknowingly hold something incredibly valuable. So it pays to look closely at every detail, from the mint mark to the date to the smallest doubling or misalignment, because history shows us that one small mistake at the mint can turn an ordinary coin into a multi-million-dollar masterpiece. And this is why collectors never tire of searching, studying, and cherishing coins like the 1952D wheat penny, a coin that embodies the mystery, rarity, and excitement of numismatics and proves that even the tiniest details matter in the grand scheme of collecting history. Next, 1958D wheat penny. Get ready for an exciting journey into the fascinating world of rare coins where even the smallest cent can carry a story worth millions, because today we are diving deep into the mystery and allure of the 1958D wheat penny, a coin that on the surface might appear like any ordinary piece of copper from mid-century America, but in reality, under the right circumstances and with the right set of errors and mistakes, has been valued by collectors and auction houses at an astonishing $3 million. And when you hear that number, you may be thinking, how can a 1-cent coin be worth as much as a mansion or a fleet of luxury cars? But the world of numismatics is built upon rarity, history, condition, and above all, the extraordinary anomalies that set certain coins apart from the billions of ordinary pieces minted in the same year. So let's unravel the secrets of the 1958D wheat penny and explain exactly why some examples are considered worth a fortune, because the Denver Mint in 1958 produced an immense number of wheat pennies, over 800 million to be exact, and with such large-scale production, errors were almost inevitable, but only a handful of those mistakes ever slipped through the minting process undetected and made their way into circulation. And those are the pieces that collectors spend lifetimes searching for, because they hold the possibility of being that elusive rarity that changes someone's financial future overnight. So what kind of errors could a 1958D wheat penny contain that would elevate it from pocket change to a multimillion-dollar treasure? Well, first and foremost, there is the matter of double dies, one of the most famous and desirable minting errors in all of coin collecting, where the die used to strike the coin was improperly hubbed, resulting in doubled images of the design, particularly visible on the date, lettering, or even Lincoln's profile itself. And when you find a coin from 1958D with strong doubling on the obverse, collectors know that they are dealing with something far beyond ordinary, because a double die penny from that period is not just scarce, but almost unique. And examples of double dies have commanded astronomical prices at auction, with some varieties from other years, like the 1955 double die or the 1969S double die, fetching tens or hundreds of thousands. So you can imagine that a rare and nearly unknown double die for 1958D could easily cross into the million-dollar territory. And beyond doubling, there are also repunched mint marks to consider, where the D mint mark was struck more than once into the die and left overlapping impressions visible under magnification. And while some repunched mint marks are more common, dramatic ones from 1958D are scarce and highly desired, particularly when paired with other striking anomalies. Then we must also discuss off-center strikes, where the planchet was not properly aligned under the press, and the resulting coin shows Lincoln's portrait shifted or even missing partially, and dramatic off-center errors combined with full readable dates and mint marks are collector favorites that can fetch immense premiums. Now think about the possibility of combining errors. For instance, a 1958D wheat penny that shows both a double die obverse and a strong off-center strike would be nearly unparalleled in rarity. And when you combine that rarity with the nostalgia of the final years of the wheat penny design, it creates a perfect storm of desirability that drives collectors into bidding wars. And another factor adding to the immense value is the condition of the coin, because a coin with heavy circulation might still be interesting, but the examples that soar into million-dollar valuations are almost always mint state, graded at the highest levels such as MS65, MS67, or even higher by grading services like PCGS or NGC. And if you imagine stumbling upon such a coin in uncirculated condition, preserved for decades, in a collection or a forgotten roll of pennies, the value can easily catapult into the multi-million range. And when stories circulate of a 1958D wheat penny selling for $3 million, it captures the imagination of every casual coin collector and treasure hunter out there, because it represents the dream of finding something life-changing in the most ordinary place. A handful of change from the corner store or a jar of pennies passed down from grandparents. And what makes this story even more compelling is the history behind the wheat penny itself, because by 1958 the wheat reverse design was nearing the end of its run, with 1959 marking the transition to the Lincoln Memorial design. So the 1958D pennies carry with them the symbolism of the final chapter in a beloved design series, making them historically significant as well as potentially error-laden. And when you bring all these factors together, the end of the wheat penny era, the minting mistakes like double dies, repunched mint marks, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks, cuds, and lamination errors, combined with rarity, pristine condition, and collector demand, you start to see the full picture of why one of these coins could skyrocket to a $3 million valuation. And beyond the technical aspects, there is also the psychological side of collecting, where the legend and mystique of a rare error coin fuels competition among wealthy collectors, who want to own not just a piece of history but the bragging rights of possessing something that virtually no one else has. And the competition itself pushes the price higher and higher at auction, sometimes far beyond what might seem rational. And this is why stories of multi-million-dollar pennies are not exaggerations but reflections of the passion, rarity, and money that circulate in the numismatic world. And when you start thinking about possibilities, it becomes endless. Maybe there is a mule error out there where a 1958D obverse was accidentally paired with a reverse intended for another denomination. Maybe there's a transitional error involving the changeover from wheat to memorial reverse dies. Maybe there are experimental planchets used for testing that slipped out into circulation, all of which would elevate such a coin into near mythical territory. And this is why collectors continue searching, continue examining every 1958D penny under magnification, hoping to discover that one piece that rewrites the record books. And as incredible as it sounds, it only takes one, because once authenticated and certified by a reputable grading service, the market recognizes the rarity and the value shoots up dramatically. And so when we say a 1958D wheat penny can be worth $3 million, we are not just talking about copper, we are talking about a confluence of history, rarity, condition, and era that transforms a common coin into a legendary artifact. And this is what keeps the excitement alive in coin collecting. Because every coin in your pocket has the potential to be more than it seems. Every old penny tucked away in a drawer might be the hidden treasure that changes everything. So as we conclude this deep dive into the incredible story of the 1958D wheat penny worth $3 million, remember that the thrill of the hunt is part of the reward. And who knows? Maybe the next time you open an old roll of pennies or check the bottom of a piggy bank, you might just find yourself holding the very coin that collectors and auctioneers are dreaming about, the one that proves that even the humblest coin can carry with it a tale of unimaginable value and wonder. Last 1944 wheat penny. Today, as we dive deep into the fascinating and almost unbelievable world of coin collecting, where small pieces of history can turn into life-changing treasures. And today we will focus on one of the most incredible and mysterious examples of this phenomenon, the 1944 wheat penny, a coin that might look like an ordinary 1-cent piece to the untrained eye yet carries an astonishing story of errors, mistakes, and rare circumstances that make it valued at up to $3 million, a staggering amount of money for a coin most people would think is worth only a penny. And as we explore this legendary piece, we will talk about the historical background of the 1944 penny, the reasons it is so collectible, the incredible errors and varieties that occurred during its minting, the speculation and theories surrounding why certain mistakes happened, and why collectors, investors, and historians alike go crazy over the possibility of finding one of these rare examples in circulation or hidden away in an old collection. So let's start by remembering that the 1944 wheat penny was struck during a very unusual time in American history, right in the middle of World War II, when the U.S. Mint was experimenting with different metals because copper, which had always been the main component of pennies, was in high demand for the war effort to make ammunition and other military supplies. And as a result, in 1943 the government made pennies out of steel coated with zinc, giving us the famous 1943 steel cents. But in 1944 the mint returned to using copper, mostly from recycled shell casings from the war. And while this sounds straightforward, it led to one of the most fascinating situations in U.S. coinage history because during the transition some 1943 steel planchets were accidentally left in the minting presses and got struck in 1944 with the new date, resulting in the legendary 1944 steel wheat penny, which is one of the holy grails of American coin collecting, a coin so rare and so mysterious that it can fetch millions of dollars if found in excellent condition. And this is where the story of the $3 million penny begins, because these transitional error coins were never meant to exist. They were products of mistakes, of overlooked planchets, of human error or mechanical oversight in the fast-paced environment of wartime production. And when something that was never supposed to happen slips through the cracks and ends up in the hands of collectors decades later, the value skyrockets, not just because of rarity, but because of the story behind the coin. And with the 1944 penny we find not just one type of error, but multiple possibilities that drive collectors wild. For example, there are the extremely rare 1944 steel cents, which were supposed to have been phased out after 1943. There are 1944 cents struck on foreign planchets because the mint was also producing coins for other countries during the war, and sometimes blanks for coins like Belgian or Dutch or other foreign coins got into the presses. There are double die obverse varieties where the numbers and letters appear doubled due to hubbing errors. There are off-center strikes where the design is misaligned. And there are repunched mint marks where the D or S mint marks were punched more than once, leading to collectible variations. And all of these mistakes combined create an aura of mystery and desirability around the 1944 wheat penny, making it one of the most studied coins from the 20th century. And when you consider that one of these rare errors, like the 1944 steel penny in pristine condition, has been valued at up to $3 million, it's no wonder that coin enthusiasts search tirelessly through jars of pennies, old bank rolls, and inherited collections hoping to stumble upon one. And let's imagine the possibilities of why this coin could exist. The workers at the mint in 1943 and 1944 were under immense pressure, working around the clock to produce billions of coins for a wartime economy, and in that rush a few leftover zinc-coated steel planchets from 1943 could easily have become mixed with the recycled copper ones in 1944. And when they got struck with the new dies dated 1944, they created something entirely unintentional, but extremely rare, and this mistake became a treasure. And to make things even more fascinating, some of these 1944 steel pennies have been discovered from different mints: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, each with their own levels of rarity, with only a handful known to exist across all three mints, and collectors value these distinctions greatly, making each coin a story of its own. And the possibilities don't end there, because foreign planchets offer another exciting twist. The U.S. Mint in Philadelphia was striking coins for countries like Belgium and the Netherlands in the mid-1940s. And sometimes the wrong blank would get struck with a U.S. penny design, creating off-metal errors. So you could have a 1944 penny struck on a brass or silver-colored foreign planchet, and these unusual mistakes are also highly valuable, adding to the myth of the 1944 penny as a multimillion-dollar collectible. And then there are double dies, caused by the hubbing process, where the design was impressed more than once at slightly different angles, which can make the date or letters, like Liberty or In God We Trust, appear doubled. A dramatic and eye-catching error that collectors prize. And when such an error is combined with a rare date like 1944, its value multiplies. And when you add in other striking errors, like off-centers where part of the design is missing, broad strikes where the collar failed and the coin spread wider than normal, clipped planchets where part of the blank was cut off, or die cracks where raised lines appear across the coin due to breaks in the die, you see how many different mistakes could potentially make a 1944 penny extraordinary, and each of these errors tells a story of human oversight, machine wear, or unusual conditions. And that is what excites collectors, because coin collecting is not just about owning metal, it's about owning history, mystery, and a tangible piece of a story that was never meant to exist. And the 1944 wheat penny represents that better than almost any other coin. And when we talk about a $3 million value, we must remember that it's not just about rarity, but also about condition, because collectors prize coins in mint state with little or no wear. So a 1944 steel penny or foreign planchet error in high grade certified by a trusted grading service like PCGS or NGC can command astronomical prices at auction, while a lower grade example might still be worth tens or hundreds of thousands, but not quite millions. And this creates another layer of excitement as people hope not just to find a rare coin, but to find one in excellent condition. And it's worth noting that auction results have shown again and again that these rare 1944 pennies cause bidding wars among collectors, with prices reaching into the millions, because when only a handful exist and wealthy collectors want them, the sky is the limit. And part of the intrigue is also the possibility that more might be out there hidden in collections or in jars of pennies sitting untouched for decades. And that dream drives people to keep searching, to check their change, to look carefully at every wheat penny they come across. Because you never know when one of these rare treasures might appear. And beyond the monetary value, the 1944 penny serves as a symbol of how mistakes can create legends, how something unintended can become iconic, and how a simple penny can tell a story about a nation at war, about industrial processes, about human error, and about the passion of collectors. And as we wrap ourselves in the details of this coin, we realize that the fascination comes from a combination of history, rarity, beauty, and mystery. And when you put all of that together, you get a coin that is worth not just money but imagination, a coin that continues to inspire treasure hunters and collectors around the world. And the allure of the 1944 wheat penny at $3 million proves that sometimes the smallest objects carry the greatest stories, and that is why so many people remain captivated by this humble yet extraordinary piece of American numismatic history. And if you think about the possibilities of how many jars, boxes, or collections remain unchecked in attics, basements, or safety deposit boxes, it makes the story even more exciting, because one day someone could discover a life-changing coin where they least expect it. And that's the magic of the 1944 wheat penny, a coin born of errors, carried through history, and elevated by collectors into the realm of legend. And with so many layers of mistakes and mysteries surrounding it, the 1944 penny will forever stand